So I am seeing 10 a.m. Eastern on my end over here. So welcome everybody to the next installment of the Working Smarter series. So this one we will be going over ePro tips and tricks. Just first introductions. My name is Kelsey Buhler. I'm a product specialist here at Viedoc. I've been here for 4 years, almost 4 years in August. And prior to coming over to Viedoc, I was a data manager using Viedoc for my studies. So I have designer experience, data management experience, and I'm excited to go over some ePro tips and tricks with you all today. So before I begin, I do want to just talk housekeeping for this webinar. It is recorded. I will be talking over the next 30 minutes about ePro and some items that can help you out and how to use it the best. And then we also will have 15 minutes of reviewing your questions that come through. So within Zoom, there is the area for you to submit your questions. And then if you have any technical difficulties related to Zoom at all, please use the chat area. And then, we will go over your questions at the end there. And then in 2 weeks, this recording will be available, as well as if there are any questions that I'm not able to get to during this session, we will have answers for those as well. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in here. I promise I'm not slide showing you to death. I am going to just have a few slides. So we'll just go through these, and then I'm going to hop into the Viedoc system, just because I feel like navigating through that is a lot easier. So really just this first slide, let's go back to the basics. What is ePro? And ePro stands for Electronic Patient Reported Outcomes, which is the collection of patient-reported data electronically using devices like computers, smartphones, or tablets. So just a little reminder of what that is. And if we have any beginners, maybe they need that definition. And then next up here, I do have a little overview and some pictures of what Viedoc Me looks like on some phones, the laptop, and just reminders that it is all web-based using a URL to access Viedoc Me, and is also BYOD compatible. So as we see on these pictures, we can use phones, tablets, laptops, etc. For these ePro questionnaires to be completed via Viedoc Me. And last but not least, and important, is the data is not stored on those participant devices. It submits directly into the system. So as I mentioned, I'm not going to slideshow you to death, so I am just going to minimize this here. Escape out, minimize, and we'll minimize again. This will be, you'll see that later, but I am going to just expand my Viedoc screen here, where I'm already all logged into Viedoc, and I'm going to kind of walk through the admin area where I have some tips, the designer area where I have tips, as well as clinic, just again, so you and your users can get the best use of the system. So the very first area that I would like to cover is admin. So I'm going to go ahead and click into admin. I will go into the ePro tips and tricks study that I set up. And then we're going to go into study settings. So I just like to highlight this area. If I scroll on down, there is a Viedoc Me specific study settings area. And I just don't want this to get forgotten, that it lives here. And for new studies that are added, this Viedoc Me area for use the new application design is going to be automatically selected for training sites and production sites. Below that, there is an area where it automatically checks this, because with the new user interface for Viedoc Me, it does force the participant to change their PIN code at first login, which is great, getting them to enter a PIN code that they will remember. And then below that, the sharing of access details. In the past, we only had the option of printing a PDF. But now there is the availability of sharing access details via email as well as text message. So if you would like to have that enabled, you will need to check those boxes. Typically, they're pre-checked here. And then below that, of course, we can have reminders for our ePro questionnaires so that they complete them. This will just allow for those activity reminders to be sent via email or text message as well, or both, whatever you choose to do for your study. So that was one area in admin that I really wanted to touch on. But below that, there are more options that could be applicable to Viedoc Me as well. So below that, I have a couple that I wanted to highlight that may come up throughout the life of your study if you need to potentially make data corrections to ePro submitted data. We do have a white paper on this as well of how to approach this, how you should document that. But this little checkbox right here, allow roles with locked data permissions to unlock forms submitted from Viedoc Me, will allow a role that has that lock permission to go in and unlock if, say, a subject reports, hey, I input the incorrect response here, I would like to change it. They can discuss that with the site. Site may reach out to the data manager, monitor, whoever has that lock permission to then unlock it so updates can be made by the site. Again, all of that should be documented very thoroughly if you're going to change subject submitted data, but this would allow for that to occur. And then below that, there is also allow clinic users to change an automatically assigned event date. So this also, most of us know if you have the event date form visible for your Viedoc Me event, that's going to automatically assign the event date based on the submission of the Viedoc Me questionnaire. So this is another area where you can choose to toggle that on if for any reason a date needed to be changed. And then below that, and this actually is always enabled for the last couple of years. I'm going to date myself because I know back when I was running studies in 2017, I only had the option to view like the cards as well as issues. Those were my only two tabs. This enable navigation to extended selection pages, and this may only apply to very old studies that have been running, again, I dated myself like 8, 9, 10 years ago. If that's when they started, then maybe this isn't selected. But this extended selection page allows for you to navigate to a Viedoc Me compliance page, as well as an events tab, which gives you an overview of everything that was completed. So those are just some highlights that I wanted to cover from the admin area that can impact how Viedoc Me and ePro ultimately can work within your system. So that was really it for the admin area that I wanted to touch on. Next up, of course, is going to be our designer tool. So if I just exit back out and actually open that up, that is available right here with my designer access. So I'll just click the ePro Tips and Tricks design again. And if I go into, say, version 5.0, we'll just click in here to go over some of the items that I just want to highlight again that apply for Viedoc Me and ePro use. So where I want to go first, I'm going to go into forms. So we'll go in and edit those. And then if I scroll on down, our example, one of our many examples of ePro questionnaires that we have designed is this example of medication diary. So one of the fields that exists on the medication diary is the VAS scale. So that's this field element right here. And what I always highlight, even on product demos with the VAS scale, there are additional options of what you're able to do in here. So just opening up these settings, we are going to be able to see, of course, like all of our other fields, we can update that field label. Our min-max value labels, we can set those as well in the system. The orientation, do you want it horizontal? Do you want it to be vertical? And then this is one of my favorite options for the color. You can make it full color where it goes from green to red, or you can make it a solid gray line. And then below that, depending on your study's needs, I used to run medical device studies and had to do a VAS scale that didn't actually have the scores on there. So here you could say, get rid of the numeric feedback, number scale, even the line scale. So I always like to highlight the VAS scale and those different options that you have when you're actually designing out your questionnaire forms. And then another option that's available and specific to Viedoc Me as well is the drawing pad item. So if I click drawing pad, it looks like a file upload field here when I add it to the form. But you are able to actually select what kind of background. So do you just want an empty background where they can input, maybe draw something? Full body where they can see an image of a body where they can mark maybe where pain is, where their issues that they are having are occurring on their body, as well as a signature area. So with signature, of course, that would be something if you would want to make that visible only to some roles, you can do so. But yeah, the drawing pad was another item that I just wanted to remind all of the designer users out there that that is available and all the different options that you have available for the VAS scale as well. So coming back out of the form area, you have study workflow. So really wanted to drive home the point about how in study workflow, if I go to the scheduled events here, my Viedoc Me ePro event is available for me to make whatever setting updates I would like. Some items that I always like to highlight is, of course, at the event level, we can make ePros visible on certain conditions being met in the system, of course. If I edit this and look at visibility, in our case, we're doing it based off of an event date. You'll see this as well when I actually switch to the clinic view to give some tips and tricks there. But visibility, of course, using our JavaScript, we can make things visible or hide them if a condition has not been met. And then with scheduling here, this is something that's really important and something that I use very often for my questionnaires is the ability to propose a date calculation. So in this case, for this study, we end up having the ePro event be 0 days after the reference date of baseline of the event date. And then we also have a plus 7-day window there. So of course, you can make whatever that needs to be for your protocol. And then if I want to, we hear often people use diaries and they want to be able to enable the recurrence. If I just check that box, I can select how many times that this should actually recur, as well as maybe even providing an additional proposed event date. So if I wanted this to be for a month, maybe we'll do 30 times and we'll have it proposed event date 1 date after the reference date here up above for baseline. And then below that, we can actually separate or set separate time windows for recurring events as well for a window before or after if that applies. So a lot that you can do with the scheduling and making things recur so that you don't have to keep creating the same events over and over. That really helps you out and helps out with the scheduling and making those questionnaires available. Other items, even at the event level, that I like to touch on are reminders. So we, of course, can set up reminders to the subject as well. But reminders here are actually for your study users. So your site users, I can send a reminder if the event has not been completed. I know for projects where I've been a project manager on here for study builds, this has been very useful for notifying sites, hey, this subject, 01-001 still has not completed this, so they can follow up. in addition to the other system reminders. But this is, again, another helpful area where you can send X number of days before or after a window start date. So we provide different options there, or even the target date, which is usually that proposed date that may be towards the middle of the window, depending on what your window configuration is. But you can do target date, window end date, and specify at what time you would like to notify the team as well. So if you want 7 a.m., noon, 5 p.m., you can do all of those. And you can even repeat. So if it's still not completed and the team needs to be notified repeatedly, you can set that up as well. And just down below here, really helpful drop down of all your available clinic roles where these alerts can be sent out to. And of course, being able to customize that subject, the body of the message, and this little helpful hint here allows for you to include system variables as well. So like the study event type, your event date, event proposed date, all of those are included as system variables. And what is amazing is we don't limit you with the number of these reminders that you do in the system. So you can add as many of these as you may need when it comes to event reminders, as well as the Viedoc Me subject reminders. So here for Viedoc Me ePro, we also have the green activities. So we have each of our forms in an individual activity. That's just how we chose to build out this study. But if I go into, say, medication diary here, we have general areas. Of course, assign your activity ID or name if you need to, or if you have a visibility condition, if they should show or hide. So for example, if you have a questionnaire specific to the right hand and they were treated on the left, then maybe you don't send along that right hand questionnaire to them. Timing, you can enable a proposed time calculation for subject-initiated activities as well. So with this, I can say, oh, I expect this to be done at, let's say, 7 a.m., but maybe we're going to set this to be 2 hours before, 2 hours after. Maybe I have some early risers where they may get in there at 5 in the morning, and then my later risers where they have up until 9 a.m. So great way to show that. And what I like about it as well is as you make these updates within the system, you'll be able to see these reflected on the different activities as well. So right there, we can see there's that 7 a.m. plus or minus 2 hours. And if I edit this activity again, just the last tab that I wanted to cover in Designer is the ability here to set up reminders. So reminder messages, now these would go specifically to the participants, where we would input what kind of reminder message we would like. And then we have the availability here to send on a target date, or if I send, click this, I can say how many days I want to send before or after the target date. So again, that target date is really looking at your proposed date for that whole window. So it can sometimes be more in the middle of your window. So you can set however many of these you would like. And again, different times. I have a project where they have probably I want to say maybe 15 different reminders at different time points, looking at days, also multiple reminders a day, like 7 a.m., noon, 5 p.m., midnight, just making sure that they get those questionnaire responses. And within that study, they are actually boasting and bragging about a really high compliance rate, getting close to 96% compliance with subject questionnaires being submitted. So really neat to see those reminders doing the job that you expect them to do. So that was the reminder area. And of course, you can build out, we did ours in separate activities. Maybe all of your forms go within one. Of course, it's always going to be based on your study's needs. There is one other note with ePro within Designer that I did want to touch on as well, is that within the forms and with the basically any kind of like data checks, functions, default values. Those are not supported in ePro. That was one of the items that was brought up by multiple team members when I said, hey guys, what do you want me to bring up? So I just want to remind you all, and this is in the e-learning as well, that currently in the ePro forms that you can't return functions or edit checks within those. So we will just go ahead and close out of Designer because I'm going to pivot over to the clinic view now. And I've got a pretty neat little screen viewer that I have for my phone. So for the first area, I'm going to go into my ePro tips and tricks study that I have created, and I'll launch in as an investigator. And with this page here, of course, this should look familiar. We have our cards. I'm going to click into US 001004. I created them earlier this morning to just already have the ePro tab ready and available here. So here is the Viedoc Me ePro tab. So this is what was outlined in that activity that we were looking at in the design tool. And it triggered with baseline this event date being completed. So this is available here. And then of course, if you have anything that doesn't fall into a scheduled window, you can do unscheduled events too. So subjects' adverse reactions here, cognitive test sample are our examples. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and access this Viedoc Me icon so I can go ahead and activate my subject. So we're just going to do this, activate the Viedoc Me account. And here's an area where if I had translated surveys uploaded, I of course could have that showing more languages here. For this one, I just did English and participant email address, just going to input that. And if I had checked those reminder boxes in the admin area, a little reminder area here for checking whether they want to receive it via text message or email will show as well, depending on your admin study settings. So if I click activate account, this will give me the participant details so I can see that user login info. So there's the username and one-time PIN code. I also have the option here to print or save as PDF file or send directly to the participant's email address. So in this case, I will just actually do the print or save as PDF file. But I can also, if I choose, I can send to the participant's email address as well. So if I share that, I'll also get an email. But what I'll do is I'm going to actually open this up here. And what I have set up and what I'm going to make available, so just going to minimize this guy here and bring the clinic view over on the right-hand side. So we'll just do that, bring that here. Oh, of course, made that too big. Let me see if I can minimize this a little bit more. Make it actually look like a phone because this is my phone. So here we are. I'm using Let's View to actually mirror my phone. So I actually have Viedoc Me pulled up here. So I'm going to go ahead and log in with the details. I'm going to be like my boss who doesn't often use a iPhone where it's fun to get used to the keyboard. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead, I input this username and PIN code. And then when I log in, oh, it's telling me it's incorrect. So maybe I typed this in wrong. So let me try again. FSF 314. And let's try this again. 5, 4, 5, 6, 10. Log in. There we go. So now I'm getting the ability here. Of course, my phone is trying to autofill with a password, but let's see here. Let's do new strong password. There we go. Set PIN code. Of course, you wouldn't be doing screen share on here, so we'll set. Oh, and it wants a requested format. So let's try this again. Oh my goodness. Does not want to work for me today. There we go. We're just going to do what we always do for our demos. do that. And I'll input this as well. So here we are, set pin code. And when I do this, it'll actually allow for me to continue welcome user. So this is on my iPhone 12 Pro. We'll continue and then be able to see the available medication diary that's here. I'm scrolling. We can go into unscheduled event. So as I mentioned, you can also have unscheduled events. And then below that are all of my upcoming events here. So we're able to see that nice and available of what is to come for all of my different questionnaires. So that's always something that I like to highlight on this events page. Yes, it shows upcoming events. It will even show events out in the future. So say somebody has a 3-month follow-up questionnaire that they need to do, it will show it. It just won't be available until that window opens. And yeah, just always like to remind people, go in here, play when you're testing these things out. Our medication diary, when I go through this on yes, we can move forward there. If I said yes here, you can, of course, set up that skip logic conditions in order to show please describe on yes, on no, that hides. And just going through these, again, if you set something to required, you will see this show if they try to move forward. They won't be allowed to move forward until it's not blank. And here's that fancy VAS scale with the green to red. So this one, I can slide the scale to where I would like it. We see that number return to where it's been put on that slider scale. And last but not least, of course, they can go back, make any changes they may need to by using this back button. If I go ahead and use the green button there, we'll just submit it and it will go into the clinic view. So even on this page, this was something somebody wanted to remind as well from my team, that when you're in the clinic view and if somebody's saying, oh, the questionnaire is not showing up, refresh the page. In this case, once I refreshed, we can see that medication diary is available and ready right here. So there is one other item that I wanted to touch on when it comes to Viedoc Me and compliance, and then I'm going to come back again to my phone. But the selection view here, I just click the 3x3 square. Then this is that selection page view that I was discussing before in admin. So here's that cards, issues, and then Viedoc Me. If I click this Viedoc Me area, it will give you a very nice breakdown of, hey, how many number of logins do they have, their compliance, if they've missed events, which these last 3 have missed quite a few, where they're at overall in study completion, and when is their next scheduled event. So we have my questionnaires that are available are still available for completion, but it says, it's available for 1 day, and my account status as well. With this little drop down, you can actually see what the different statuses of the accounts are. This locked one, in addition for them to be labeled as locked, the study team will be emailed. So typically the investigator, study coordinator, they would be emailed if a subject locks themselves out of their account. And then they would be able to go in and reset their PIN and do all of that. So this is the handy dandy compliance table, just kind of keeps you in the loop of how they are doing in the system. And then the one last item that I wanted to touch on my phone here, I'll go back into Viedoc Me, and we're in the last 2 minutes of my half-hour session. There is something coming soon, and it is planned for release 4.86. So we have actually just this week, we're in the process of releasing 4.85. So 4.86 is next. And I'm going to show an NRS form example as that is something that we will be coming out with where you're able to set, of course, your field label text, but your anchor labels, as well as this showing very nicely on a phone for, say, this range from 0 to 10. So really nice in the system here. I can select what radio button here. So if I want 8, but of course, you'd be able to update those no pain to unbearable pain to the labels that you may need for your study. And just like the other questionnaires, it's going to go in. If I click next, we'll submit it. And then from the clinic view, if I come back to cards, open up US 001004, and then the NRS form example, it'll populate as such here. So we're really excited about that. And again, it's planned for our release 4.86. And now I know I am at my 10:30 mark there. So now I'm going to go ahead and switch gears and go over to the Q&A and see what kind of questions we have here. So let's see. So I have a response here for, oh, I've got quite a few. I'm going through all of them. These are exciting. So we have one anonymous user who has submitted a question. Can an ePro be scheduled based on 2 different dates? For instance, one that can be completed starting from the date of enrollment visit, first date, and up to 7 days after the baseline visit, second date. Thank you. So with this, I'm going to go ahead and mark it. I'm going to answer it live. And with this, you have with scheduling in the ePro study workflow area, the way to look at a specific reference date. So it is a singular date at this time in the system. Thank you for that question. And then here, let's see, we have one. Could you explain how the ePro user session is managed on mobile devices? For example, does the user automatically log out after a specified period of inactivity, 5 or 10 minutes? And what happens if the user loses network connectivity? Will their session persist? And how is data synchronized once the connection is restored? So in this case, we do actually have a timeout for that as well. We have the specific minute mark. I believe it falls close to the system EDC where it's 20 minutes of inactivity, but I will double check that and confirm the actual minute mark for Viedoc Me for when they are actually seen as, hey, you're inactive, we're booting you out. And then if they lose network connectivity within Viedoc Me, it will, if they are, say, in the middle of a questionnaire and it's not yet submitted, it will not be considered, excuse me, complete. So it won't submit just what they've entered so far. They will have to re-enter. So the connection being strong is typically required as you need that stable internet connection. And then we have one for VAS representation of pain. Is that given in percentage? So in our case, ours is 0 to 100. So it's just that scale from 0 to 100 and not typically a percentage, just a numerical value there. I'll answer that. Let's see. Is it possible to set up an ePro so that it can be filled in at any time, for example, at enrollment visit, and then follow specific time windows at the subsequent follow-up? Yes. Yep. So what you can do, especially I've seen this in the past, like with a baseline, you can have that available right away, like with their first enrollment visit, have that be your next event available. And then specific time windows you can do for your follow-up visits as well. And then always, I know this was done anonymously, but you can do unscheduled Viedoc Me ePros so that they appear on that left-hand side on the clinic view, but the participant can actually enter those at any time, which can be another workaround there if you choose to use that. Let's see. Authentication or biometric verification. So it says there was another question. Do you plan to enhance data integrity and compliance in future releases by incorporating features such as two-factor authentication or biometric verification, e.g. facial recognition? Great question. One note, and I didn't cover it on this session just because it is related to document share. We do have two-factor authentication codes sent out that way. So we will see if we have that as well for the Viedoc Me logging in basically to the system. I'll check in with our product team. As far as biometric verification, depending on the participant user's setup on their phone, I know actually one of my colleagues has Face ID set up to tie up to his passwords. So them themselves, they can actually tie their password to their Face ID in order to go through and do that on their own personal phone. So that was another great question there. Let's see, we got quite a few in here. Need an iPhone or an app? Oh, that's a great question. So do patients need an iPhone or an app from the App Store to use this? We are not in the App Store. So I had accessed a link. So actually on this page right here, the metraining.vdoc.com, that is just a URL that they will input into the whatever device they're using, their computer, their laptop, their tablet, phone. They can save that on their device. And I actually have one just as an example here. We'll go back to my home page so you can actually see it. I have a couple different versions of Viedoc Me. Now, this is just me saving the URL as a block on my phone, basically, on my home page. So yeah. So that one was answered. So we have another question that the unscheduled ePro visits show up. So this little guy over here on the left show up in the common events list in clinic. Are they set up in designer workflow as a common event or as unscheduled? So in this case, they are configured in the unscheduled area. Or actually, they can be both. Let me correct myself. Since it's nested here under common events, it can be under there. But yeah, it's typically reflected under unscheduled events within the designer tool. And yeah, unscheduled events that can be added by the basically by the clinic are then shown here. But as long as the designer, set that event to subject initiated, then it's going to appear where you would like it to. So I answered that one as well. Let's see. So there is another question on an improvement. So thank you for this feedback, where it always says like this here, your next scheduled event. This was submitted, so it goes to the next one. So looking for an improvement there. Yeah, I'll take that to our product team in order to look at that. So thank you again for that feedback. And it looks like for the most, oh, there are more down here. We keep getting more in. If I want to share a document by Viedoc Share and Viedoc Me, do I need to design a scheduled event with at least a form? So great question. And again, didn't go over document share just because we were more focused on the questionnaire part today. And maybe that will be a future webinar series. But within document share, it's tied into a couple pieces of the system. So eTMF is where a document is uploaded in order to be shared with either clinic users or subject users. So you don't actually have to program any kind of questionnaire in Viedoc Me for that share item. It does tie in with a document that has been uploaded into eTMF. So you don't have to design anything specific for your Viedoc Me forms there, unless you want to capture something extra from the subject that you want reflected in the database. Doo-doo. Awesome. Got one other question, maybe? Oh, I think everything I've answered. So, if there are any that come through that I have not answered, we'll of course go through and mark that. But if anything, you guys will get access to this recording as well as the Q&A session too. We'll get answers, responses actually typed out. So you'll get the recording as well as the Q&A and get that published in 2 weeks' time. So thank you all for joining, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.